In the print chapter of the book, I went through the various steps that will be required to prepare an image ready to go to print. And what I'm going to do here in this movie tutorial is just show you the print sharpening and the soft proofing steps that I discussed in the book so that you can see for real how they're actually carried out. And this follows on from the earlier movie tutorial on this DVD where I discussed the capture sharpening. And just to recap, the capture sharpening is all about sharpening for the content of the image so that each different image will require a different pre-sharpening treatment according to the type of content in the photograph. But the important thing to understand about the print sharpening is that it's a universal standard process which is dependent on three different factors, which is namely the type of process that you're going to be printing with, the resolution of the image, and also the media type, whether it's going to be glossy or matte paper. And dependent on those three factors, that will affect the type of sharpening that you will apply to the photograph, but it will be the same for all images, regardless of the content. So to start with, I'm just going to open up this photograph here, and this is from the images folder on the DVD, where when you open it up, you will notice that there is already an example sharpening layer included, and I'm just going to delete that for now because we're going to create the sharpening from scratch. And at the same time, I want to show you how to record these steps as an action, because if you are going to use this technique, I think you're only going to find it useful if you record this as an action so that it's easier for you to replay on other images. So to begin with, we've got the print sharpening actions highlighted over here in the actions panel. I'm going to click on the create new action button down at the bottom here and then give this action a name, which will be called 300 ppi glossy, and then click record. And now I'm ready to start going through all the steps that are required. And the first one is to take the background layer and copy it by dragging down here to make a background copy. And then I'm going to change the opacity of this layer to 66% and double click anywhere on the layer in the blank space, not on the name itself or on the thumbnail, but on the blank space area, which will open up the layer style options. And here what I can do is adjust the blend if sliders, and the formula used here is to take this one down to 230, hold down the option key on a Mac or the alt key on a PC and drag the red half of the slider to 250. Down here on the underlying layer, drag into 10 and then hold down the option key again on the Mac or the alt key on a PC and split that into two and drag the second half across to 20. Once I've done that, I'll click OK. Now we're ready to apply a sharpening to the image. I'll go to the filter menu and choose sharpen unsharp mask and apply the settings you see here, an amount of 320% with a radius of 0.6 pixels and a threshold of 4 levels, and then I'll click OK to that. Now go to the edit menu and choose fade unsharp mask and set the fade opacity to 70%. Now for the next step, I'll go to the blend modes for the layers and change the blend mode to overlay. Don't worry about the change in appearance because this is a pre-step before applying the next filter, which is the high pass filter, and the radius here is set to 2 pixels, which would be the right amount for this particular print sharpening, and I'll click OK to that. And there is the finished result. I'll just click on the stop button over here in the actions panel and we're done recording. And if I just enlarge this image up to 100%, you can see the before and after. There's the before and there's the after. It has actually applied a fairly aggressive sharpen. And as I pointed out in the book, the thing is, don't look at the monitor to make a judgment about whether this is right or not. The only way to judge whether you've got an effective sharpen is to actually make a print. And this is one of the reasons why one of the earlier steps involves setting the opacity of the layer to 66%, because you can do a print using this sharpen setting and evaluate the print to see whether it looks sharp enough or not. And if you think it needs to be sharper, then you can always go back to the image here and then just increase the opacity to increase the strength of the effect. Or if you think it's too sharp, then you can always take the opacity down. So with this technique, you've got the leeway to go up or to go down. And to finish off here, I'm just going to delete that layer and show you that now that we've got the action recording all the steps successfully recorded, anytime you open up a new image, you will have to make sure that it's flattened. So what I suggest you do is, if you're going to apply these steps as shown here, make a duplicate of the image, of your master image, then flatten it so that you end up with a flattened image with a background layer, and then go to the Actions panel and then just simply press on the play button, and there are all the steps applied to the image in literally less than a second. Now the image is ready to go to print. So that concludes the first part, which is the print sharpening step. And as I say, just don't forget that this is for an inkjet print output using glossy paper with a 300 pixel per inch resolution. So let me just now close down this image and go back to Bridge, and we'll now look at working on this next photograph, where we're going to look at the soft proofing. So let's now open up this photograph here so that we can show how the soft proofing is actually done. This shows you a full frame view of the photograph that we were looking at earlier when I was explaining how the print sharpening worked. The first thing I need to do now is to create a duplicate copy of this so that we can apply the soft proofing to one image and then use the master image to compare with. So to do this, if I go to the image menu and choose duplicate, this dialog appears, and if the photograph that I'm about to duplicate happens to have a lot of layers in it, then I would probably want to choose the duplicate merge layers only option, but since it's a flattened image, that option's grayed out. So I'm just going to simply click OK there for now. So we've got two photographs, and if I just bring these two windows together and then go to the view options so that I can see the two side by side, I can now have over here the original image. This is the master image, and then over here we've got the duplicate copy, and I can do the following comparisons looking at the two windows next to each other. So starting with the master copy image, the first thing I need to do is to go to the view menu and go to the proof setup and choose custom, and from here I can choose any device to simulate. It could be a CMYK process. I could choose any CMYK process that's available on the list, or as I've done here, select a printer profile, which would be the printer profile of the printing paper that I intend to print to for this particular printer. So here I've got a third-party profile for the Epson 4800 printer. The black point compensation would be left on as usual, and then down here simulate paper color is selected, and you can see that if I toggle the preview on and off, you can see there's the before and there's the after. You can see the changes taking place in this window, and then also you can see the difference that the simulate paper color option has. And basically what this does is that it knows the profile knows the color of the paper stock that we're going to print to, and it can simulate that paper color, and that will also have a bearing on the soft proof. So it's important to have all those options checked when you're doing a soft proof this way. So now that's done, I can click OK. And just to recap, what we have here is the master image with the soft proofing applied, and this provides a preview of what we can expect when the colors in the original image, in this duplicate version here, are sent to the printer. And as I explained, there is a slight difference between the two, which confuses some people because they think, well, if color management is supposed to be so fantastic, then surely the color management process should take care of all that anyway, and there shouldn't be any need for doing any soft proofing. Well, yes, up until a point. The color management does a good job of actually helping to color manage images as you transfer them from one device space to another. But the thing you have to remember is that it's still a dumb conversion. Although it might be the result of the measurement of many hundreds of color patches that are used to create the profile, despite all that, the color profile itself can't be expected to carry out an aesthetic judgment about the specific colors that are important to you, such as, for example, the blue in the sky here. And the thing that you can probably notice most about the difference between the before and the after, and it's only subtle, but the colors of the blue sky are not quite so contrasty or as strong or as saturated as they are over here. And this is where the soft proofing comes in, because we can make small compensations to the master image at this stage so that what we send to the printer, i.e. this file over here, matches in color a little bit closer to what we see attainable over here in the master image as it was before we did that soft proofing. So let's show you how this is done. It'll make more sense when I start carrying out a few adjustments. Over here in the adjustments panel, I can click on the curves button to open up the curves adjustment and add a curves adjustment layer down here in the layers panel. And I'm going to start by setting the blend mode of this layer to luminosity so that the adjustment that I carry out now is only going to be applied to the luminance of the image rather than to the color. So that I'm just going to target the luminosity only for now. And to start with, I'm going to put an anchor point in here on the curve and then just add a couple of extra points up here so that I can increase the contrast in the midtone to the highlight areas. And that simple adjustment there, if we switch on and off the eyeball icon here, you can see that it just adds that little bit more contrast that had been lost in our soft proof view. Then if I go to the adjustments panel again and click on this button now to return to the list view, I can click on the hue saturation button to add a hue saturation layer that you can see added now down here in the layer stack. The blend mode for this I'm going to set to color, because now for the adjustments that I carry out here I want to target just the color values in the image and not affect the luminosity. So if I go to the master menu here and select the blues, then that will target the adjustment to the blue colors. But if I select the eyedropper from here and click in the image, it will just fine-tune that selection so that it targets the exact blue colors in the sky in this photograph. Then if I adjust the saturation, I can take the saturation up a little bit higher. I can perhaps take it up to around there and then take the lightness down as well at the same time so I can make it a bit darker. And that tweak there, although the image doesn't exactly match what's in the original master, I can show you now that if I take these two layers and put them into a layer group, so I put group layers, make those into a layer group, and then name this soft proofing layers, I now know that I can switch off the eyeball icon here to see the image soft proofed but without those adjustments applied to it, and then switch it back on again so that you can see the before and the after. It's subtle and it's a small improvement, but it's one that gets us a little bit closer to the image that we've been working with on the screen and what we'd hoped to get in print. And the small adjustment I've made here should hopefully now produce a print, or should definitely produce a print that we see soft proof here, which will match very, very closely now to this particular view. So that's it really. I mean, that's an explanation of, first of all, how to apply the print sharpening for a specific print type process and resolution that I showed in the first half of this movie tutorial, and then I showed you how to carry out a soft proofing so that you can more accurately predict the colors when they go to the printer, and then make small modifications in Photoshop so that you can get a much closer match to what you were hoping to get from the original photograph that you were editing.